right? So it's a top secret CIA project, but to the rest of the world, it didn't exist. World War II had just recently finished. The Korean War was just finishing up. Nuclear warheads had been dropped. That's one of the reasons why MK Ultra was actually started off, because the whole world was basically in a state of fear, right? And the Korean War was finishing up, and they were getting soldiers coming back who they'd basically been shell-shocked, but the way that they were being interpreted when they were coming back was that they'd been almost converted to communism, right? And the New York Times released an article saying that, you know, so GIs are coming back from the Korean War and they've been brainwashed and...
what, because they had PTSD in the way they were acting?
Well, that's what it sounds like. So the whole world's got like this fucking paranoid fucking shit going on about spies, right? Like spies are like in the news everywhere, and like people are really aware that every country's like trying to get information off of everyone. The CIA find out that Russia is doing experiments on mind control. LSD, the drug, like the hallucinogenic, was like a pretty new drug back then.
Yep.
And the Russians were trying to get all the fucking LSD in the world, and they were using it in experiments to like, control people's mind and
all
get them
of
to
the
forget what they
LSD
were.
in the world.
All of the LSD.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm probably wrong, but isn't LSD like created?
Yeah, in the lab. Yeah.
So how do you get control?
I don't think they had a problem of creating it. I think they
It's
were
not
buying
like
it
a
up to
magic
stop
mushroom.
other countries doing what they're doing, right?
Okay.
Like they're trying to buy the supply.
It's like, I'm going to go out there and
Yeah.
get all mushrooms in the world.
And this could all be bullshit, right? But this is just what the CIA have heard. So like there's this big fucking state of fear. And in 1953, Alan Jules, he's the newly appointed director of the CIA. He gave a speech where he spoke about how the American prisoners of war had come back and had been converted by communist brainwashers.
Brainwash is the technical word for it.
Well, that's a direct fucking quote.
Because he's so good with the English.
Okay, so in his speech, Jules, or Dulles, said, in the past few years, we've become accustomed to hearing much about the battle for men's minds, the war of ideologies. I wonder, however, whether we clearly perceive the magnitude of the problem, whether we realise how sinister the battle for men's minds has become in Soviet hands. We might call it, in its new form, brain warfare. He went on to say that Soviet brain perversion, there we go, brain perversion techniques as effective but abhorrent and nefarious. He said that the American prisoners of war that were coming back from Korea were basically shells of men that they once were, and this was due to brainwashing communist motherfuckers, right?
Okay, that realistically, that's PTSD.
Well, it certainly sounds like that. But anyway, he's going, and it's probably a combination of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right? Like these people were not treated well.
No, and then there was a lot of them that would have been coming back from prisoner camps as well. So.
Well, these are prisoners of war he's talking about. So they're going to be traumatized regardless, but some of them straight up would have been experimented.
So they could have tortured, starved prisoners of war plus the regular life of a soldier.
So from this, this was a public speech, but this wasn't announced after this, but it was only 3 days later that he gave the all clear to Project MK Ultra, right? So it was giving fucking sick scientist motherfuckers like the ability to use like electric shock treatment, like crazy amounts of drugs and fucking hypnosis and all sorts of shit to see if you can gain control of a person. Now,
so they were doing this to these people who had these soldiers who had come back from the war, being prisoners
basically have you seen the movie Manchurian Candidate?
No.
So you can own someone, do something that triggers a person to just be in your control, and you can get them to go and assassinate someone, assassinate a president,
So you're hypnotising someone.
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen that movie.
And then they have complete amnesia. It's very famous. But anyway, that's what they were trying to create. Like, it's the Manchurian Candidate, right? So officially there was 150 human experiments involving a whole bunch of fucked up shit, but there was actually thousands and thousands and thousands, right?
Oh my God.
So many of the tests were conducted at unis and hospitals and prisons, right? Lots of the people volunteered for these things. So You know, they'd get paid. Like, there's a few, I'll get into it a bit later, but there's a few real famous people that actually volunteered for this shit. Probably because they heard there was free LSD involved or something. I have no fucking idea.
I know you'd be there.
Not from the fucking
You would have
CIA,
been. You
mate.
would have been there in a heartbeat. Let's face it. If you lived back then, you wouldn't have made it to
But
adulthood.
anyway, they basically disguised, like, no one knew it was a CIA experiment. Like, they just disguised it under a bunch of, like, university tests and, like, started up these other names of companies and fucking, like, hid all this shit under stuff. What they ended up finding out was these cunts weren't just fucking doing it on people that were volunteering. They did it on thousands of just normal American citizens. Like, they were doing some pretty crazy shit. Like, they were buying out, like, they were using CIA safety houses and turning them into brothels and, like, anyway, I don't want to get into that one too much because I've actually got a little bit on that properly coming up.